success, wealth, recognition. Gary Cooper had it all, lost it all, then turned a revolutionary discovery into the success paradox. Here's Gary.
I'm back with Marci Shimoff. She's not only the best-selling author, but also a transformational teacher, a happiness expert, and a miracle maker. She has touched the hearts and minds of millions of people around the world with her books, her TV appearances, and her online programs. Now, Marci, we wrapped up part one talking about the happiness scale, happiness continuum, and what you call the happiness set point. But could you share more of the daily practices or routines that people can adopt to cultivate more happiness and joy in their lives?
What I found, Gary, is that there are 21 main happiness habits. And I found out that I looked at them in all, and they really fell into 7 main categories. And we each have 1 or 2 areas of these 7 that are our weakest. And what I want to do is I want to go through these 7 areas of our happiness. I call it building your inner home for happiness. And I want everybody to be thinking about, where am I the weakest? And Gary, you're going to be my guinea pig, so I'm going to ask you at the end where you're the weakest, okay? And it's these 7 areas that we need to be strong in, all of us. So I know it's hard for people to remember 7 of anything, so I created a metaphor to hopefully make it easier. And the metaphor is building your inner home for happiness. And a home has 7 key areas. It's got a foundation. It's got 4 corner pillars, it's got a roof, and it's got a garden. And this is how those 7 main areas relate to our happiness. The foundation of your home is what we've just talked about earlier, taking responsibility for your life and your happiness. Not showing up as a victim in life. Victims are people who blame, shame, and complain. So anytime you go into that behavior of blaming, shaming, or complaining, you're a victim. You're not choosing how you can respond in a way that's more empowered. So that's the foundation, is your ability to respond or choose to respond. Then there are these 4 corner pillars, and the pillars are the pillar of the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit. The mind is our thoughts. Are you thinking thoughts that are robbing you of your happiness? The heart. I've never met anyone who is happy and had a closed heart. Happy people have open hearts. So are you kind? Are you forgiving? Are you generous? Are you compassionate with others and yourself? Do you have self-love? Then there's the body. This is the biochemistry of happiness. Do you have enough of the happy chemicals? Serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, dopamine. That's a real thing. Are your body giving you the happiness chemicals? Then there's the soul or the spirit. And this has to do with your connection to the greater energy of the universe. Do you feel, and I don't care what you call it, whether it's God, divine, spirit, nature, doesn't matter what you call it, oneness, but do you feel connected to the greater whole? And then there's the roof of your home. And the roof is your purpose or passion in life. Are you living a passionate life? Are you doing what it is you're here on the planet to be doing? It's not an accident that you're alive. Are you doing what your calling is? And then finally, there's the garden. And you referred to this a little bit earlier, Gary. And the garden is, who do you surround yourself with? Are you surrounded by beautiful roses and gardenias, the people in your life that inspire you? Or are you surrounded by some weeds, the people that might drag you down? So those are the 7 areas. Let me just review them again. It's the foundation is taking responsibility for your life. The 4 corner pillars, the mind, the heart, the body, and the soul. The roof is your purpose or passion in life, and the garden is who you surround yourself with. So Gary, I'm going to put you on the spot. Where are you the weakest? And then I'll share with you where I have been the weakest.
I think the last 6.5 years, I have been very intentional on all of those. I didn't know that's what they were called. I've been very intentional. Where I am the weakest is when I start taking the wheel back on my purpose. So I had it explained this way. This guy said he was driving down the road in a Tesla, and the Tesla's an auto-driving car. And he put it on auto drive. And then he kept his hands around the wheel, just making sure that it was driving itself okay. And his analogy was, he trusts God like that too. Like, God, I'm going to let you drive my life, but I'm going to put my hands around the wheel just to make sure you're doing a good enough job for me, God. And I'm like that too. Like, okay, God, I'm going to give you my life, but I think I might want to go start this business over here. And so it's kind of like, God, and in Christianity, it's like you can't serve two masters. And I have trouble with that. I want to do all these 7 things, but then I want to be in the real world too. I still have trouble with being a driven businessman. So I have trouble keeping both.
I actually think ultimately you're talking about living a surrendered life, living a life where you're completely trusting in the universe. That has to do with the pillar of the soul, and absolutely trusting that life has got you. Einstein said that the most important question we can ask ourselves is this a loving universe? And if your answer is yes, and happy people's answer is yes, it doesn't mean everything goes your way, but it means that you trust that whatever is happening for you is happening for a reason. And so you live more in that surrendered, trusting state. Now, in that state, I found that it may also be your calling not to be driven in the way that you're talking about, but to be inspired. You might still be very busy doing inspired action. Some of the, I think most deeply surrendered and spiritual people in the world are also working very hard doing inspired action. I mean, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or certainly Martin Luther King was doing inspired action. So I think that the distinction is about whether you're trusting and taking inspired action. I don't know. How does that sound to you, Gary?
I think that's right. Here's what helps me. And you're exactly right. I have trouble letting go. And so here's what helps me. Someone told me that God says yes, no, and I wouldn't do that to you. And so a lot of times I'll have these plans and I think it's going to happen in, say, 2023 or a certain date in 2023. And so now I just let it go. It's like, okay, I hope it happens in 2023, but if it doesn't, no big deal. Or if it does happen, then I don't get all the credit because I just did the footwork. And that, Marci, is foreign to me. But I've been practicing that way of life for 6 years now. And you talk a lot about energy, and my buddies that I grew up with, they really think, I haven't really talked to them a whole lot about this, but I wholly subscribe to the energy. And here is the way I describe it to them. If you see a beautiful osprey or an eagle fighting against the wind, and then all of a sudden they turn with the wind and they just start soaring, and it's beautiful and effortless. I think that energy's in the room with me and you right now. And I think it's in our business place. And I spent 25, 26 years in the business place fighting like that eagle. And then 6 years ago, I turned with the wind and I ceased fighting anybody and everything. And I think that energy is, you talk about that energy, and with some people, they think it's weird, but you and I have found that secret energy. And I love how you share it with the world, because if more people could sit back and watch things unfold and cease fighting it, like that story with your sister, oh my gosh.
I agree with you completely. It's about whether we're going to go against the current or go with the current. And sometimes things aren't meant to happen. I mean, there's a great saying that I've leaned into many times. Rejection is God's protection. when I think of the things that I thought I wanted to have and I want this, it's got to be this way. And I look back and I go, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that didn't happen. Certain relationships in particular, I can think about, oh my goodness, they broke up with me. Rejection is God's protection. So it's about not going against the flow of life. And I think that it takes an open heart and trust for that. I think you were referring to a story I'd like to tell about my sister. It has to do with the story of forgiveness. I am huge into the idea of forgiveness. I've seen that people ask me what's the fast track to happiness. And I will say there are two things. One is gratitude and one is forgiveness. I think of them as an angel on each shoulder of mine, the angel of gratitude and the angel of forgiveness. And my sister is 11 and a half years older than I am. And so we weren't super close growing up, but we have a very close family and we've always had, it's always been very loving. And a number of years ago, my sister and I got in an argument and we weren't talking. And this was the first time that this had ever happened in our family where we were just not, silent treatment. And about 3 or 4 months into this, I think I was, kind of dug in my heels, and I'm not going to apologize, all of that. Anyway, about 4 months into this, we had to move my mother into assisted living, and we were all gathering, my brother and sister-in-law and nephews, and we were all gathering to move my mother. And I was really nervous because here my sister and I hadn't seen each other or talked in 4 months. So I went in that morning to her new apartment. We were going to unpack her, and everybody was already there. And I said hello to everybody, but not my sister. And we went through the morning ignoring each other, trying to avoid each other in this small 1-bedroom apartment that we were unpacking. And after a few hours of it, it was so stressful to me that I decided to take a break. And I went down to my car. And I remembered as I was walking down to my car, this practice that I had learned called Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian practice of forgiveness. And it's based in the Hawaiian kahuna tradition. And it was very simple to send these 4 wishes out to the person or situation that you have not forgiven. And they are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So I sat in my car for about 5 minutes and I sent those wishes to her. And then I spent about a minute sending them to myself. And I felt this huge wave of love come over me. And I realized that my sister wasn't angry at me for what had happened 4 months earlier, but it was a lifetime of stuff that I hadn't seen before. And I suddenly saw my part in the whole thing. And I went, oh my God, I had so much compassion and love for her. So I went back into the apartment. I didn't say anything to anybody. Within about 3 minutes, she came over to me out of the blue, took me by the hand and said, come on, Marci, let's go unpack Mom's closet together. I was like totally taken aback. We're at lunch an hour later. She hands me her baked potato. She said, Marci, you like these more than I do. You have mine. I pulled my brother aside. I said, okay, what did you say to her while I was gone? He said, nobody said anything. I have no idea what just happened. Well, that turned around our relationship. And thank goodness it happened when it did, because 9 months later, my sister and I found ourselves standing in that same closet of our mother's, but this time we were packing up Mom's things because she had passed away very suddenly. And I can't imagine what that would have been like had my sister and I not had that healing, that just opening of the heart. And so I don't even know that I've ever shared that story with her about what I did that day. I don't think I have. But I know that that's just, I just know that forgiveness really makes a difference.
Marci, there's so much wisdom that you've shared. You did the opposite of what, you probably wanted to do. And it sounds like she might have too. And, in the book that we did, a lot of what we learned was doing the opposite of what at least my human nature was. I learned that if I really wanted to be productive, I needed to rest. And that is absolutely opposite of what I was taught, or at least what the American way is taught. And you mentioned that, you were successful the old way. And you went up to that hotel room and you were exhausted. I guess where I'm kind of going is just an open dialogue with you. Is we're kind of like at a crossroads, with our youth. And I'm not really planning on this discussion. I'm just kind of talking openly. I want to dedicate a lot of time to helping our youth. And I would love to find a star, a Demi Lovato or a young star that some of us could get behind and say, how could we get behind them? And all of our proceeds, mine and Will's proceeds, are going into a foundation to support the publishing of a book that Demi Lovato or a superstar could write to say, you're already good enough the way God made you. And you don't have to compare yourself to social media. And that's really a lot of what my problem was. I was comparing myself to somebody bigger, better, wealthier, more successful. Like you said, I wanted the body of Halle Berry. I think you're beautiful. But there's always somebody that we think is prettier or better looking or richer.
Well, I so love that idea of helping youth, and certainly through role models is such a beautiful way. And comparison is the fast track to misery. We are each here to be our own selves. And I think of Jim Carrey. I love Jim Carrey, and certainly he had difficult circumstances growing up, and his family, at one point, I think he was living in a car. And he knew that he wanted to be a great comedian. He wanted to share his gift of comedy with people, help people laugh. And he manifested this. He has his own story is so great about how he visualized it all happening and he followed his heart. Now, if Jim Carrey compared himself to Sir Laurence Olivier, he would come up really short. Really different. That's not who he is. If Sir Laurence Olivier compared himself to Jim Carrey, he would come up short. That's not who he is. It's about encouraging each of us to be who we truly are. And I think it all starts with our own belief in ourselves. If there's anything we can do for our kids, it's to help them feel the truth of their own being and help them follow their own heart and their own inner voice and not be in comparison to somebody else that's doing something else on the planet that they're not here to do, really what you're here to do. And I love, Gary, that you're really about this and that's something that you are committed to supporting.
Well, that's what, a lot of us sit around at dinner discussions and we talk about it. And I just decided, instead of talking about it, I'm going to do something about it. Mm-hmm. And action has been the secret for me. I can think about the law of attraction, and I heard this in one of your talks. I think it was with that young kid from France. And somebody was saying, well, the law of attraction doesn't work. And you're like, yeah, they're probably just waiting on it to happen. It doesn't work that way. You have to put things into action, man.
Yeah, the law of attraction isn't just about visualizing something. There's 3 steps. Intention, be clear about what you want. Attention, put your thoughts, your words, your feelings, and your actions into it. And then no tension, let go, trust, and surrender. So it's all of that together. And that's what creates the magic in life. That's what creates us living an aligned, miraculous, happy life.
So what haven't we talked about? I want to know, what are you doing? You're happy for no reason. What's next? What are you doing personally? What's something we don't know about you?
Well, about 10 years ago, I started waking up every morning feeling as though my life was miraculous. And I had no idea what was going to happen during the day. I mean, I had my list of to-dos, but other things would show up that were just the right person calling at the right time with an answer, or amazing, amazing opportunities opening up to me that just were miraculous. And I started realizing that in the same way that we can be happy, we can also live in what I call the miracle zone. And that's where miracles, by definition of the dictionary definition of a miracle, is a surprise and welcome event that can't be explained by science, but that's often attributed to divine grace. So we can't create miracles. They're from the divine. What we can do is we can create the circumstances for miracles to flow in our life. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Gary, about surrendering to life, living in the flow of life, living in the alignment of life. And so that's what I've committed the last 10 years to. I actually teach a program called Your Year of Miracles. And it's about helping people live a miraculous life. And I have gotten to witness tens of thousands of people living more and more in this miracle zone.
That sounds amazing. Like, how would somebody get in touch with that?
youryearofmiracles.com is the website, and all the information is there. And there's a free ebook there that you can get on living a miraculous life. And so youryearofmiracles.com.
That sounds incredible. And you and I call things, I feel that feeling. I've experienced that feeling. I called it relaxed productivity. I quoted this giant, beautiful African-American man. His name's Big E. And I was still in that obsessive planning and driven and not letting go mode. And he said, boy, he sounded like James Earl Jones. He said, boy, you can make all the plans you want, but God's in the results business, boy. You got to let it go, boy. And it was just beautiful. And so I still make plans, but 6 years of doing life this way, things now just show up at my door that I don't even plan on. Business opportunities, old relationships that I thought were gone forever that now come back, new opportunities to serve in a prison ministry, all different ways of helping and being helped. There are two-way streets, and that miracle thing sounds amazing.
That's such a beautiful way to live, and you are such a fantastic embodiment of living this way. And I really appreciate, I love the success paradox, and so appreciate how you have used your life as an inspiration and a teaching for other people and a model. You're a great role model.
Well, I'm lucky to be given a second chance to live, and I want to make the best of it.
People often ask me if it's selfish to want to be happy, or to worry about what about the rest of the world, and I have to take care of the rest of the world. My answer is that it's the least selfish thing in the world to work on your own happiness, because when you're happier, it affects everybody else. It affects the people around you. In fact, there's a beautiful Chinese proverb that I love to share. It goes like this. It says, when there's light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there's harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there will be peace in this world. And so my prayer and my wish is that every one of us feel that light in our own souls. And through that, we help create peace here on this planet of ours. And that is why I'm so grateful to you and your book, because one person at a time is being touched about how to live their life in the ways that we've just spoken about. And that is how we will create a better world. So thank you for touching so many people, one person at a time.
That really answers one of the questions I was going to ask you and I forgot, was how big can a person's garden be? Is it a personal garden, or can it be a community garden? Sometimes I think we can control what's beyond our own personal garden, but if you make your own personal garden beautiful, it has a ripple effect, don't you think?
Absolutely. The research even shows that your happiness goes at least 5 people out. So you being happier is affecting your neighbors, sisters, sons, school teacher. And we don't even know how far out it really can go. So what I say is you do what you're here to do. You become the happiest version of your own life, deeply happy, not just the surface stuff. Well, we talked about happy for no reason. And then you do the work that you're called to do, however many people that's influencing. It may be 3 people, it may be 3,000 people. It's just you do what's right for you to do. And that's how we impact the world.
Well, I can't thank you enough. You've been amazing. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you ever come to South Carolina, come visit me.
Gary, where are you in South Carolina?
So we're about an hour and 30 minutes north of Charleston, but we go to Charleston all the time.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, I love what you're doing. I'm delighted that Will has connected us. And, I'm honored to be part of your message in any way. So thank you.
You're welcome, Marci. And that wraps up another episode of The Success Paradox. If you like the show, please take a moment to subscribe so you'll get notified when I release new episodes. Also, if you have a moment, I'd love it if you left us a review so that other incredible individuals like yourself can learn about the show. I'll see you next time.
To learn and practice the Success Paradox lifestyle, visit GaryCCooper.com. The Success Paradox is a production of Forbes Books.